I came home drained after a brutal day at work, and my wife's friends labeled me as standoffish for not wanting to socialize, so I retreated to my room. Later, I overheard my wife confessing to them that she regretted marrying me and was thinking of leaving. I work in construction, and yesterday was one of those days where everything goes haywire. I was out in 95-degree heat for 12 hours straight because a concrete delivery got delayed, forcing us to stay late to complete the foundation. By the time I got home, I was caked in dust, sweating buckets, my back was screaming, and all I wanted was a hot shower and a moment to zone out. But when I walked through the door, my wife Elena had 3 friends over. They were lounging in the living room, sipping wine with music playing, and they stared at me like I'd crashed their private party. The room went silent, and I could tell they'd been deep in conversation before I showed up. Elena greeted me with a casual, "Hey, love, you remember Sarah, Lisa, and Emma?" And I gave a quick nod and mumbled a hello. But I was too exhausted to muster more than that. All I could think about was scrubbing off the concrete dust, itching my skin, and grabbing a bite to eat. But Sarah, who I've never really clicked with because she always acts superior, smirked and said, "Wow, not even staying for a drink? That's pretty unfriendly." Her tone had that edge, like she was baiting me. I stood there, bone-tired, thinking I'd been working since dawn, covered in grime, just wanting to clean up. I noticed Elena giving me this look, like she was mortified by my behavior, and it started to irritate me. Why should I have to put on a show for her friends when I'd spent all day breaking my back to pay for the house they were sitting in and the wine they were drinking? I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna pass tonight. I'm white," and started for the stairs. But then Lisa chimed in, "That's kind of rude. We barely see you." And Emma nodded, adding, "Elena was just saying how you never want to hang out anymore." My face flushed with frustration. Why was Elena airing our business to these people? I turned back. Probably should have kept walking, but I was fed up. "Look, I work 60 hours a week. I'm covered in dust, haven't eaten since noon. Maybe give me a break," I said. Sarah let out this fake chuckle and said, "Always an excuse, huh?" That got under my skin because who was she to judge me? I snapped, "Excuse me?" Working to provide for my family isn't an excuse. Elena jumped in, her voice soft like she was soothing a kid, saying, "Okay, let's all relax." But her look made it clear she thought I was the issue. Sarah kept pushing, saying, "This is exactly what we were talking about before you got here. Always so defensive and upset." I wondered what they'd been saying about me before I walked in and why Elena was discussing our marriage with them. I asked her directly, "What were you talking about?" She froze, looking caught, and said, "Nothing, just girl talk." But her face screamed she was hiding something. Her friends sat there watching like it was a reality show. I said, "Fine, I'm heading upstairs," and left them there. I took a shower, hoping to wash away the day, but I could still hear their laughter and chatter downstairs. It gnawed at me. They were probably mocking me while I was up here, fresh off a grueling workday. After cleaning up, I was starving, so I went to the kitchen for a sandwich, passing the living room where they went quiet again. Sarah muttered something that made Lisa and Emma giggle, and I ignored it, focusing on my food. But as I stood in the kitchen, I caught Elena's voice saying something about me always being grumpy and never wanting to have fun. I stood there, making my sandwich, wondering if this was really how my wife saw me and what she was telling her friends. I took my food upstairs to our bedroom, turned on the TV, and tried to tune them out, figuring I'd avoid the drama. But our walls are thin, and their voices carried. That's when things took a dark turn. I heard Sarah say, "I don't know how you deal with him." And Lisa added, "He's always so moody and aggressive." Emma piped up, "That's not how a husband should act." I sat there, sandwich in hand, thinking these people know nothing about me or my marriage, yet they're judging me in my own home. Then Elena's voice hit me like a freight train. She said, "You don't get it. It's gotten so bad lately. He's controlling, always angry over nothing." I nearly choked, wondering where this was coming from. "I'm out working all day, trying to stay out of everyone's way when I'm home." Sarah said, "That sounds like emotional abuse," and my heart stopped. Lisa agreed, saying, "Yeah, that walking away thing he did? Classic manipulation." I couldn't believe it. How was going upstairs to shower manipulation? Then Elena, my wife of 4 years, said, "Sometimes I think about what life would have been like if I'd married someone else. Someone who actually enjoys life, instead of just going through the motions." I set my sandwich down, feeling sick. Emma said, "You deserve better." And Sarah added, "You need to decide if this is the life you want." Elena sighed and said, "I know. I think about it constantly. He's so negative, so toxic, and I'm always on edge around him." I sat there, stunned, staring at the wall for maybe 10 minutes, trying to process how I'd become this monster she described. I go to work, pay the bills, don't cheat, don't drink heavily, don't hit her. I thought we were okay, maybe even happy. Eventually, their voices got louder, probably from more wine, and Sarah's slurred tone came through, asking if I checked Elena's phone or controlled the money. Elena said, "Well, he does manage all the finances." And I thought, of course I do. She asked me to because she hates dealing with bills. Lisa mentioned classic signs of abuse, and Emma suggested documenting everything. I realized they were painting me as some kind of villain while my wife sat there, letting them. I couldn't listen anymore, so I put on headphones and tried to watch TV, but my mind kept replaying Elena's words about wishing she'd married someone else, wondering how long she'd felt this way and if our whole marriage was a sham. They finally left around 11 p.m., and Elena came upstairs, acting like nothing happened, asking if I was okay. I said I was fine because I didn't know what else to say. I needed time to process. But I lay there all night, feeling like I was being set up for something, that my wife had been bad-mouthing me for who knows how long, painting me as a terrible person to justify whatever she was planning. Am I the jerk for going to my room instead of hanging out with her friends? Edit. Some people asked about our relationship history. We've been together 6 years, married 4. Elena works part-time at a clothing store, and I'm in construction full-time. We bought our house 2 years ago, and I thought we were solid. Guess I was mistaken. Update 1. I don't even know where to start. But things have spiraled, and I'm in a hotel room right now, trying to make sense of what my life has become. Yesterday morning, I woke up and Elena was already at work. I decided we needed to talk when she got home because I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd overheard. I went to work, but I was distracted, and my foreman, Mike, noticed I was off, almost dropping a beam on my foot. I told him I had personal stuff going on, and he sent me home early to clear my head. I got back around 2 p.m., and Elena's car wasn't there, so I thought I'd wait for her, maybe tidy up and plan how to approach this without it turning into a fight. But when I walked in, I heard voices in the living room. I thought maybe Elena had come home for lunch with a friend, but it was Sarah and Lisa sitting at my kitchen table, flipping through papers. They jumped when they saw me. Sarah said, "Oh, didn't expect you home so early," and I asked where Elena was and what they were doing. Lisa looked nervous and said, "She gave us a key, we're just waiting for her." Why would my wife give them a key without telling me? I asked what they were waiting for, and Sarah got snippy, saying, "That's between us and Elena." Then I noticed the papers, bank statements, pay stubs, even our mortgage documents. I said, "Are those my financial records?" Lisa tried to cover them, saying they were helping Elena with something, but I wasn't having it. I walked over and saw they had my personal financial info spread out. I demanded to know what was going on, and Sarah told me to calm down. I wasn't calming down. These people were in my house, going through my private documents without permission. I told them to get out, but Lisa said they weren't leaving until Elena arrived. I said, "This is my house, and you're going through my personal stuff. Leave now." Sarah got in my face, saying, "This is exactly what we meant. You're aggressive and controlling." I said, "I'm aggressive?" "You're in my house, digging through my bank statements." Lisa said they were helping Elena understand her options, and it hit me. They were helping her plan a divorce. My stomach dropped. I said, "Get out, or I'm calling the police." Sarah laughed, saying, "Go ahead. They'll want to hear about your threats." I said I wasn't threatening anyone, just telling them to leave my house. Then Elena walked in, saw us, and looked panicked. Lisa blurted, "He came home early and started yelling," which was a lie. Elena looked at me and said, "Why are you being so hostile?" I said, "Why are your friends going through our financial records?" She got defensive, saying, "I can share what I want with my friends." I said, "Our bank statements? Without talking to me?" Sarah jumped in, saying, "See, he's controlling what you can do." I said I just wanted to know why my private info was being shared with people outside our marriage. Elena said she needed help understanding our finances, and I said, "You could have asked me. I'd explain anything you wanted." She scoffed, saying, "Right, like you ever explain anything. You just take charge and expect me to trust you." I was floored. When had asking me about money become impossible? Sarah said, "That's what controlling spouses always say." Lisa started gathering the papers, saying they should go, but Elena told them to stay. I said, "No, they need to leave. We need to talk privately." Elena said, "I don't want to be alone with you when you're like this." That hit hard. What did she mean? Like this? I said, "Like what, Elena? What am I being?" She said, "Aggressive, scary." I looked at these 3 women staring at me like I was a threat, and I realized they'd already decided I was the villain, no matter what I said. I said, "I'm going for a drive. When I get back, I want them gone so we can talk." Sarah snarked, "Running away again. Real mature." I lost it and turned back, saying, Sarah, you've been bad-mouthing me in my own house for 2 days, and I'm done with it. She said, there's the real you. And Elena said, please don't yell. I said, I'm not yelling. I'm trying to figure out why my marriage is being torn apart by people who don't even like me. Lisa said, we don't dislike you. We just think Elena deserves better. I said, based on what? You know nothing about our relationship. Sarah said, we know enough. I looked at Elena and said, is this what you want? Your friends deciding what's best for our marriage? She didn't answer, just stood there, and I realized she'd already made up her mind. I said, fine, I'm leaving. Figure out whatever you need to. I went upstairs, grabbed some clothes, and when I came back down, they were whispering, stopping when they saw me. I said, Elena, we need to talk tomorrow when you're ready for a real conversation. Sarah said, she doesn't have to talk to you if she doesn't want to. I said, she's my wife, so yeah, we do. Sarah got nasty, saying, not for long if she's smart. I asked what that meant, and she said, it means she's seeing you for what you are. I looked at Elena and said, is that how you feel? She wouldn't meet my eyes and said, just go, please. So I left, and now I'm in this hotel wondering what stories Elena's been telling her friends and when our marriage became something she needed to escape. I called her this morning and she didn't pick up, so I texted, asking to meet and talk. She replied she needed space and would call when ready. I'm losing my mind here. It feels like I'm being judged and punished for things I didn't do, and my wife won't even talk to me while her friends treat me like I'm dangerous. Am I crazy, or is this as insane as it feels? Edit. Some asked about Emma since I mentioned 3 friends, but only 2 were in the update. Emma and her husband moved to Nevada the day after that night for his job, so she wasn't around for the chaos that followed. That wine night was supposed to be her send-off, which makes it even worse that they spent it trashing me instead of celebrating her move. Update 2. I can't believe I'm writing this, but my life just imploded and I'm still trying to process it all. Yesterday morning, I decided I couldn't keep sitting in the hotel, so I went to Elena's workplace to talk, since she wasn't answering my calls or texts. I thought a face-to-face away from her friends might help us sort things out. I waited in the parking lot until her shift ended. When she saw me, her face dropped like she was scared, which made no sense. I'm her husband, not some creep. She came over to my truck and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "We need to talk. This is getting out of control." She said she'd asked for space, and I said, "It's been 3 days. How much space do you need to think about our marriage?" She looked around like she was checking for witnesses, then got in the truck and said, "Fine, but not here." We drove to a coffee shop, sat in a corner, and I tried to hold her hand, but she pulled away, and I knew this was going to be rough.